Hello and welcome, my creative friends. I'm so glad you're here. I have lots of tips and techniques to share as we alter this gorgeous vintage mirror with fabulous little birdie flowers, chipboard, die cuts, and mixed media products. You'll learn how to create this gorgeous textured background with gesso and multi-surface paints, alter little birdie chipboard and die cut pieces with embossing powder, layer butterflies to build depth and add sparkle with gems and sequins, arrange gorgeous little birdie flowers for the sweet floral cluster, and add texture with microbeads, prills, and beads. If you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button if you're new to my channel. To receive notifications of future videos, you can click on the bell icon. I just couldn't resist this vintage mirror I spotted at a thrift store. The silver plating was tarnished and chipped, but I knew the intricate design on the back would be an amazing base for a project. Start by applying thin coats of white gesso, drying between each layer. Don't forget to brush the sides as well. It took 3 coats of gesso to get the coverage I was looking for. I prefer to use several thin layers rather than one thicker layer so that the design elements don't get filled in. Gesso covers and adheres well to non-porous surfaces, then any other mediums used will adhere to the gesso. Now we can highlight the textures with acrylic paints, thinned and spritzed with water. I ended up mixing 1 drop of icy aqua with 3 drops of snow dove and just a tiny bit of sea wave along with a couple spritzes of water. These gorgeous colors are Little Birdie's Archival multi-surface paints, which are new to their line and perfect for this application. They are highly pigmented and have a lower viscosity than some other acrylic paints that I've used, so they flow into the crevices of the design beautifully. You can see as I work how the paint moves and flows into the design. I don't go often, but really enjoy my trips to the thrift store. You just never know what you might find. On the day I discovered this mirror, we were actually dropping some things off. I decided to make a quick trip into the store. I went through the household items area where I spied this gem of a mirror for only a couple dollars. I think it's one of my favorite finds ever. Do you like to thrift shop? Please let me know in the comments below and share your favorite find as well. Once the paint has been applied, tilt the mirror so it flows into all the crevices. If there's too much paint in places, you can pull off the excess with a soft paper towel. Be sure to color the sides as well. Here's a view after drying. See how the design comes to life? My husband, with an Italian heritage, said the design looks like a pizzelle cookie. Now we'll add gesso to some of the elements. Let's start with one of the flowers. I like to give a soft, shabby feel to flowers by dry brushing them with white gesso. My go-to brush is a small fan brush with natural bristles. You can dry brush flowers after adhering them to your project, and sometimes I do that, but my personal preference is to brush them first. I feel like I have better control and can get into areas that may be visible on the finished project, but hard to get to after gluing down, like the backs of leaves. I found this small butterfly die cut from corrugated board in my stash. It's the perfect size and shape to layer underneath this sweet pink butterfly from Little Birdie. The natural color doesn't quite fit with this project, so it's getting a base coat of white gesso, the same for this brass button. Dry brush both pieces using pink swirl multi-surface paint. You want to highlight the texture, and on the butterfly, brush a little paint on the edges for definition. To dry brush, you will use a brush that is dry and has not been wetted with water. Then swipe most of that paint off before brushing over the piece you want to highlight. This way the paint will mostly brush onto the raised surfaces, giving color and definition to the design. I used this Little Birdie timekeeper set to die cut a clock image from thin chipboard and selected prime chipboard pieces to accent the floral cluster. A quick and easy way to color chipboard is with embossing powder. Chipboard tends to slide around when dabbing on the embossing medium, so you can adhere it to a piece of scrap paper with repositionable tape runner to hold it in place. No more slipping and sliding. I keep a stack of papers that have been printed on one side but are blank on the other. They are out of date and slated for the trash, I use them for small painting and embossing projects. This makes cleanup easier and gives them one more use before being thrown away. Transfer the pieces to a coffee filter or another scrap of paper and sprinkle on the embossing powder. I'm using Shabby Pink, which is a blend of white, pink, and gold embossing powders with some superfine gold glitter mixed in. If you don't have this powder, you could mix up your own or use any color of your choice that coordinates with your project. Carefully move the pieces back to the scrap paper. The excess powder is easy to transfer back into the container using a coffee filter. I'm able to use the filter many times before it needs to be discarded. Heat set the powder by moving slowly over the pieces as the powder melts. Make sure your heat tool is nice and hot before starting. Now let's arrange the embellishments and adhere them as we go. First, I glue the dimensional butterfly onto the corrugated piece and then start putting the floral cluster together. I like to start with the larger flowers, then gradually work out with smaller blossoms, leaves, and other elements. Little Birdie was founded to empower women in India by providing employment opportunities for them. When I taught master classes in India, I had the opportunity to observe these beautiful women creating the gorgeous flowers totally by hand. They are shaped, glued together, glittered, and packaged one blossom at a time with no automation. If you've ever created handmade flowers, you know just how much loving time and effort goes into creating these amazing flowers. It may not be obvious, but the base has somewhat of a domed shape. Because of this, I don't expect these chipboard pieces to lie flat, and it's not necessary to glue the entire piece down. We just need to add a generous dab of glue to the portion of the chipboard that will be hidden under the flowers. This will hold them in place nicely. I glued a small bundle of beaded stamen together to add visual interest and adhered them at the edge of the cluster. The decorative button ended up being a perfect fit for the center of the clock. I found a pink bauble in my stash that filled in this space nicely. The butterfly looked like it was just hanging out there without much of a connection to the rest of the elements. To tie everything together, I added a butterfly trail using a section of pearl flourish. Now everything looks more balanced. For sparkle, add some rhinestones and sequins. I'm using a jewel picker to place them. I've selected gems and sequins in blue, pink, aqua, and clear. You can use whatever you have in your stash that works well with your color palette. They are arranged in groups of threes around the cluster and butterfly. Once they're in place, remove them one at a time and add a small drop of multimedium or glue, then place the gem back in place into the adhesive. I've placed some of this glue into a needle tip squeeze bottle so that it's easy to apply the small drops needed for this application. At first, I scattered the rhinestones randomly across the piece, but felt that it looked a bit too cluttered. I really wanted the sparkle of these gems, so I thought I'd try grouping them in threes near the cluster and butterfly. That looked so much better. As you're putting your piece together, don't hesitate to try a different arrangement if something doesn't look quite right to your eye, and go back to things that you know will work, like groups of three. By trying various placements, you can find one that pulls everything together beautifully. Now let's add some sparkle to the edge of our cluster with Little Birdie Deep Marine microbeads, along with white prills, blue seed beads, and white gold mini microbeads. Brush the areas below the cluster with soft matte gel medium, then sprinkle on the glimmering beads, microbeads, and prills. I apply the gel medium and beads one section at a time so the glue doesn't dry out. Then continue to add more until the desired areas are filled in. Just in case you're new to my channel, be sure to use an old or inexpensive brush when applying gel medium, as it can damage the bristles. You can also mix the beads into the gel medium, then spread it onto the desired areas. I've tried this a few times, but feel like the beads get clumped together and lose some of their shimmer. One way isn't necessarily better than the other, it's really more of a personal preference, so try both ways and figure out which one is the best for you. I considered several sentiments for this piece and selected altered. It's a reminder to me that when I face challenges and hurts in life, my Lord can help me pick up the pieces and move forward in a wonderfully altered way. Life may not be the same, but can become even better, just like this nearly discarded mirror was altered and so beautifully renewed. Thanks so much for stopping by and taking the time to view this video. I hope you've been inspired to pull out your little Birdie Crafts supplies to alter a beautiful mixed media piece for your home. You can find a list of Little Birdie supplies used for this card, along with a coupon code for their US store in the description below. Here are video links with more techniques for your mixed media creations. Thanks for watching and have a wonderful day. I'll be back soon with another video.